Grab your swords and shields and get ready for another season of Fragments of Silicon.
Yes, indeed. It is the start of the 12th season of Fragments of Silicon, properly. I say that because, the Final Fantasy content never really takes a break. I'm like, unless you're dealing with the knee stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reviews have started up already. But, we usually mark the official start of a Fragments of Silicon season with the interview with the main show. Especially since the Euro interviews on Fridays currently. Anyway, so I'm your host, Adam. Joining me is the regular crew. For those who might be joining us for the first time, first we are going to get to our personal news. And let's see, who to start us off this season properly? Let's see, Petty, why don't you grace us with your news?
Well, still been doing physical therapy, so hopefully this knee will work right one day.
That is the hope.
And I finally got put on some medicine to hopefully help with my headaches.
Has it helped?
Not a whole lot yet.
Well, how long have you been on it?
A couple weeks.
Yeah. Did they say how long? Did they have to adjust?
Yeah, if I don't start feeling any better by the end of the week, I'm probably gonna call neurology and see what's going on. If they need to adjust my dose or something.
Sometimes that needs to happen, from what I've been told.
And as far as video gaming stuff goes, last night we finally beat Leviathan on Final Fantasy XIV. So now we're good to go fight Titan. Oh god. And in other gaming stuff, I tried playing what's that? Sekiro? Yeah, Sekiro. I tried playing that and wasn't really a fan of the controls.
Sekiro didn't seem like your kind of game.
Some of it was alright. It's more like if I could probably play it on PC and adjust my controls, it'd be better for me.
I mean, you can. It's there on Steam.
Yeah, well, I didn't have the Steam copy. I rented the PS4 copy.
I know. I'm just saying you can play it on PC. You just need the money to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also tried Darksiders 3, and oh god, that's so clunky mess.
So I've heard. Kind of glad we didn't get a review copy of that one.
Yeah.
I mean, Darksiders Genesis is not too far away, and at the very least, that looks competent. I'm not sure if I'm going to go in for a review code. I mean, THQ Nordic.
And then I get the fun joy of on Black Friday, I get to go look and see if I can get the phone upgrades we want. So that's going to be fun.
I'll be praying for you.
At least I'm doing it online and not actually going to the store. Because we tried that once, never again. You couldn't pay me enough to go to a store on Black Friday.
That's good sage advice.
So I guess next victim. I mean person.
All right, Twilight.
All right, well, during the break, I had been sick. I, of course, mentioned this on our last show of the last season that I had a sore throat, but that turned into a sinus infection and I had to deal with that for a little over half of the break. Thank God for NyQuil. Yes, and to nobody's surprise, it's been cold here. We had some snow yesterday, and there were some concerns about that, but nothing really came of that. The roads didn't get slick enough to be treacherous. Let's see here. My first trick-or-treat night with my own home went fairly well, so I still have some candy left over and been kind of enjoying that. Haven't eaten too much of it, of course. Yeah, in terms of video games, I have been planning to play more of Atelier Verona, but instead, since it was close to Halloween, I remember the game that I bought a few months back called Clea. It was this cute, creepy horror game, kind of in the style of Clock Tower, in a way. Played through that and beat it and enjoyed it fairly well. And I also played some the other game. And that's about it.
Well, Alex, it's your turn.
It's been pretty chilly up here the last couple of days too, and we actually got some freezing rain and then snow. So, not like not like enough snow that has to be shuffled, but there's the grass has got some white on it, and the places that don't get a lot of sun have a little bit of ice on them, and that's annoying. Over the break, I was mostly playing Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. I made some good progress in that. I wanted to try and get that done before Pokemon Sword. Well, get at least a good amount of that before Pokemon Sword and Shield come out, and I may or may not get those right on release date. I want to see how they actually end out being without relying on leaks and stuff first before I go all in on those. But I mean, it still looks good, even like it looks like it'll still be fun even with all the issues, but there definitely seem like there are issues, so we'll see how that goes. But that's like this Friday, so I'll think about it.
Anything else?
Not really a whole lot. I was my parents went away over the long weekend, so I had to take care of the house, but that went fairly smoothly, so not much else.
All right, I guess it's my go. Well, let's see. My break has been spent dealing with an infestation. Yeah, it's like because it's been getting colder here. That means insects, and means in Florida usually either things like ants or cockroaches. It's cockroaches in my case. Like the kitchen has been, we've been dealing with a kitchen infestation for a couple weeks now. Thought we had it under control, but as of today, the roaches returned, and the exterminator's coming Monday.
I mean, there's not really anything inherently harmful about cockroaches, but I suppose they're at least unsightly and not fun to have around.
Mm-hmm.
Try opening a drawer and having cockroaches come out of it. And
no, I know.
You know, it's like, especially since they're around, they're around the food supply. They're not things I want around my food supply.
Indeed.
Or more to the point, my cat's food supply, because, a lot of it's not just cold, it's because the cat's a messy eater, as cats are wanting to do. So, there's little bits of food all over the fucking place. And, the roaches infested the drawer right above where the cat bowl was. Not hard to draw 2 and 2 together. Yeah. So, that's being taken care of. Now, thankfully, outside of, dealing with pests, it's been relatively quiet, which is usually what our breaks are designed to be. Now, it's like I had time to play video games that weren't for review, which is, and I mean like long video games or longish. Granted, one of the games was Baldur's Gate 2, and even on break, I don't have 100 hours to invest in one video game. It's like there's, even off break, I still have to take care of stuff, like lining up the next season. So, there's limits to my free time, even when there's no regular recordings going on. And yeah, I guess that brings me to the end of my news. So, merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us kind of again, it's one of those situations where we've had the studio on the program, but the representative is different. Joining us this time is Samuel McCully of Blowfish Studios.
Hey guys, great to be online.
No problem. How are you doing tonight or today in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, no, I'm perfectly doing really well. It's 1:30 in the afternoon for me, so it's boiling hot weather as well. So quite different from you guys.
Yeah, I've been hearing some of the temperatures in Australia, and they're concerning.
Yeah, look, leading into summer, it's already bad, so I'm not liking the sound of it getting any hotter.
No. I imagine you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Well, at least you're not personally on fire.
Yeah.
True. Not yet. There's still time.
Yeah. The thing is, a lot of Australian places don't have AC. Like, they invested in swimming pools. I mean, maybe that's a thing that's changed since I was last there, but I remember a lot of not AC.
Yeah, everywhere's pretty much got AC now, thank God. It's kind of a necessity of life here.
Yes, it is. I've experienced Australian temperatures. That was not fun. Like 40 degrees centigrade, 43. Anyway, how we like to start the interview proper is we like to get to know the people behind the studio, behind the games, and so on and so forth. And we like to ask this question first. How did you get interested in video games in the first place, both on a personal and a professional level?
Yeah, so actually my first console was a Christmas present from my parents, Nintendo 64. And I think we started with Donkey Kong 64. And oh boy, the minute I started playing that, I was just in love. And I think back in the day, my dad even was saying how lifelike all the graphics are. And, me and him played Red Dead recently, and he was gobsmacked at that. Professionally, I actually had a few friends that got into game development and then told me kind of what it was like and, that it's actually a real job. So, I thought I'd try my hand at that and studied a bit and just started interning at Blowfish until they hired me full time.
And how long ago was that, and where did you first start out?
Yeah, so I've been with Blowfish now for about 4 years. Started out originally as a QA tester. So I was actually the first for the studio, just kind of testing our internal games. And then as we kind of developed and started picking up more client work and publishing games, we built a proper QA team, and I headed up that for a bit until making the jump over to production, where I'm just currently overseeing all our publishing games.
That's quite the rise. And have you been working just at Blowfish?
Currently, yes, just at Blowfish.
Okay. And not an uncommon thing for someone just with a few years of experience. So anyway, you are the head of publishing at Blowfish?
No, so our head of publishing, Mike, is based out of the US. Basically, I'm the publishing producer within the studio in Australia.
Okay, and what job duties does that specifically entail?
Yeah, so basically all our publishing games are based over. We have a few within Australia, but most of the developers are overseas. So a lot of it's just liaising with them and making sure, that what they're doing, they're hitting their milestones. And, once we get the final game code, we'll start porting it over onto consoles and in some cases Steam. So just keeping them informed on that process, and then just managing our internal development to kind of make sure we're hitting, key dates on when we want to announce and have release dates.
Unglamorous work, but it needs to be done. I'm like,
Yeah, it's often the overlooked part of game development. Everyone thinks it's all art and coding, but production's very much a necessity.
yeah. I mean, on our show, we've covered a lot of facets of game development, let's say, and coding and art direction and all that does get represented more than say the publishing side of things, but it does happen on occasion. Like,
Yeah.
anyway, in terms of publishing, is it all like remotely done in Australia, or have you ever had to like go physically overseas to oversee things?
So we do travel a bit overseas as well, mostly for events. So we'll, every time there's a PAX, we go to every PAX and we'll take publishing games across from there. We've usually taken it and put it onto consoles by that point. In some cases, we've got a few devs based in Latin America. So we've had one of our other publishing producers who speaks Spanish go down to Argentina and meet with them and just chat and kind of get to know them a bit more. But aside from that, most of it's just remote.
Makes sense. And now you mentioned that sometimes you cover the porting. In terms of that, do you do that in-house, or is that something that's subcontracted to another developer?
Yeah, no, so we do that in-house. We've got a full team of artists and programmers. There's within the studio, about 27 people. Mm-hmm. And then, they'll be working on anything from our own internal games to client work, and then also to our publishing games as well.
Okay. How many people work on these teams? Like you said, 27, but how big would a porting team be? Like 4 people?
Yeah, a porting team is probably about 4, counting production, and probably about 6 people or so. If there's additional art that needs to be done, if we kind of leave that up to the developer if they want to do that themselves, or we can have some of our artists take care of it as well.
Right. And anyway, I suppose we should get down to the games themselves because, well, we've actually got quite a few games to run through because you do publish quite a few games in a given year. And we've narrowed the field down to about 8 or 9, time depending. And we're starting with Wartech Fighters.
Yep.
And I suppose the first question is, what is Wartech Fighters?
Yeah, so Wartech Fighters is kind of a mech action game. You'll take control of a mech suit essentially, and leading a team of either by yourself or a team of other mechs in space, trying to hunt down mystery bad guys in the story. And yeah, so it's kind of like a Japanese mech game mixed with the action of Hollywood. It's fully customizable, so you can kind of customize your mechs with different skins, layouts, give them different weapon abilities and powers, and essentially from that there's 3 different classes as well: light, heavy, and kind of more balanced.
And I'm guessing this is an arcade action title.
Yeah, so it's definitely more of an action title. It's for the most part you set in space, so you can kind of move both forward, back, up, and down as well, and just move around pretty quickly with jet boosts as well.
It sounds very standard for a mech game, at least most mech games. It's like anything that's not, say, Armored Core, if you've ever played one of those.
Yeah. One of the things that I personally love that kind of stands out with it is you also have swords and shields. So when you kind of whittle down an enemy's health bar enough, you can engage in mech fights using sword and shield in space, and in most cases do finishing moves to other ships that aren't mechs, just with your sword or shield, just bashing them, which it's really satisfying to see kind of that animation play
out. I see one of the big selling points of this is the customization. How customizable is a mech here?
Yeah, I believe we were looking at there's about 300 to 400 different types of customizable options you can give any mech in particular. From that ranges from different paint jobs to different individual pieces. So like we kind of split it up based on the arms, the legs, the main body, and the head. And from that, you'll have like a couple base arm, body, leg types, and then you can just upgrade different components of those base ones, and they'll give you just different traits, kind of different attack, defense, speed, stuff like that.
Sensible. And how much can you do in terms of customization right out the box, and how much do you have to unlock, and how do you unlock parts?
Yeah, so basically you'll unlock parts via you can actually, there's a few ways. So after each mission you'll kind of get sort of currency. You'll get paid for kind of what you do, and then you can choose where you want to spend that money in terms of what ability you want or what kind of part you want. Other ways you can do it is you also get, well, within the game world on certain missions, there's key research components. So finding those will unlock more of your specialized mech classes. So there's as I kind of outlined, you've got your base sort of light, heavy, and medium sort of attack, but there's also custom kits that the devs have kind of pre-made. So stuff that will make you kind of look like a devil, an angel. Mm-hmm. Locating those in the game world is more of a long-term task of the game.
And like, how many stages or arenas or levels, whatever you're calling them, do you have in this game, and how long would it take a campaign to take?
Yeah, so I believe there's about 20 levels in total in the game, and it certainly took our QA team a fair while to kind of play through all of them. You'd be looking at anywhere from 6 to 8 hours easily. From that, there's also, I believe you can then go back in and try it with a different class. So if you've kind of been playing on, light, you're a lot quicker, but not as, offensive. You can maybe try a different style or different difficulty mode as well from there on.
And is there just like a campaign mode, or are there different, additions, like say a time attack mode?
Yeah, so there's a campaign mode, and then there's a kind of wave survival mode, which there's about 3 or 4 different environments within that. Mm-hmm. So it's more just how long you can survive within it, which we haven't made it very far ourselves. We're not the best at it.
Oh, that's always interesting. I mean, I know you're not the developers, but you're still. I imagine there's a number of people who are intimately familiar with the game at your studio.
Yeah. No, it is certainly the case that we see a lot. We either get really good at the games we kind of develop, or we're okay, but we can pretty quickly find someone better than us.
Does that come up in QA?
Yeah, so for some of our other games, more our party multiplayer games, we end up having like ridiculous competitions during lunchtimes for it, which is a lot of fun.
Oh, that's good to hear. And speaking of multiplayer, does this game contain any of that, or is it just a single player experience?
So this is just a single player experience, this game.
Unfortunate, but also understandable. When you add a multiplayer, that changes variables a lot. Anyway, so shifting forward, let's see. Subdivision Infinity DX.
Yep.
I suppose my first question here is, what does the DX signify? Was this a game that was ported from another platform? Was this a remake with extra content?
Yeah, so originally this was a iOS and Android game. Mm-hmm. So this kind of come out on iOS and Android, and we got in touch with the developers because it played really well on those platforms, and we wanted to kind of see what it was like on more of a console or PC experience. Mm-hmm. And they'd actually reached out to another developer to publish the PC version who we're quite friendly with, and they recommended us as well, likewise, to do the consoles. But yeah, so basically this is more a space shooter sort of game. It's basically you'll have a range of different ships, and you kind of kit them out with whatever weapons you want. There's about 10 to 20 different weapons, as well as kind of there's different mining abilities as well, because you'll gather resources, and about 10 to 15 missions as well on top of that, and just going through space and kind of taking down different cruisers, battleships, tankers, and it leads to some pretty spectacular boss fights.
And given that this was originally a iOS, a mobile game essentially, what did you have to do to transpose it to consoles?
Yeah, so honestly, the developer was pretty on the ball with all that himself. So there are a group of Russian developers, Misfly Games, and he was Nikolai, our contact, was really good. He had it mostly running in PC, pretty much from the get-go. So we kind of just took that and took the source code and kind of just started applying our own little magic to it to just kind of get it running on consoles from there.
Oh, that's good. And once again, getting back to the DX, what specifically was added to this version to make it a meatier experience for consoles?
Yeah, so we definitely added a few more missions and some more spaceships. So that kind of changed up how you would approach missions as well. So we added some console-specific ones, as well as some console-specific paint kits. Mm-hmm. So I know, for example, there's, depending on what you get it on, if you go PlayStation, Xbox, or Switch, if you get it on PlayStation, you'll get a ship with like, a blue, almost Sony-colored, paint job, and likewise green for Xbox and red for Nintendo, which is, we didn't even know about it until we kind of like started testing on all three when we picked it up, and it was a nice little touch.
I see. And I'm not sure if you can answer this because you didn't publish this version, but is the mobile version of Subdivision Infinity still available?
I believe it is. I believe you can find it on the Android store. I personally only have an Android, so I've not looked that much on iOS myself.
Fair enough. All right. Let's see. Shifting gears. I hate it when I lose my notes. Right. Here we go. Kung Fu Kickball. Okay, so I suppose the title kind of gives what this game is, but it's also, why Kung Fu Kickball?
Yeah, so this is kind of the little, as I was speaking to earlier, that kind of game that we're playing in the office every lunchtime. So Kung Fu Kickball, as a brief overview, it's an action sports fighting game that's, easy to play but difficult to master. The developer's based out of the US, and he kind of really enjoys making games that, they're super accessible to kind of everyone, but there's a level of skill involved. And how it kind of plays is basically there's either a one-on-one or two-on-two team, and the aim of the game is to kick, punch, or headbutt the ball into your opponent's goal. And honestly, it creates a lot of fun. It ends up becoming more of a fight, and we kind of see a lot of people just, beat the other enemies and take a more offensive approach, beating up the enemies while a teammate kind of kicks the ball into the goal, and it just leads to a lot of chaos.
I remember Kickball. I remember it being chaotic, and what does the Kung Fu add to Kickball?
Yeah, so that's kind of the main way that you are transporting the ball. Anyway, you can only kind of kick or punch the ball, and you can charge up those attacks, and the ball will either go flying or it'll give it kind of a little tap and it'll move along. As well as it allows you to kind of play a bit more offensively or defensively. Like you can jump and try and kick the ball further by giving it a bit of air, or you can kind of just like knock down enemies and kind of they'll be knocked down for a few seconds, so you can kind of like have a clean shot at the goal. So it's really just a really violent version of soccer.
So kind of rugby-ish.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, we're certainly more familiar with rugby than us Australians, so it appeals to us a lot.
Right. And showing off the trailer here, and there are 3 player classes: the monk, the ninja, and the old master. What does each player class bring to the table?
Yeah, so each player class does have slightly different variants. So the monk, for example, is more your all-rounder. He's really familiar, easy to use. He's got good jump height, good kick, punching, damage. The ninja is definitely a bit more skillful. She moves a lot more faster and can jump a bit higher. Personally, she's one of the I prefer to play as, because you can get from one end of the map to the other pretty quickly. And then the old master he's a lot more. He can really do a bit more damage, so he'll kind of knock people down a bit easier or push the ball kind of further with each of his attacks. And from that, I mean, there are only 3 of the characters at the moment. We've still got 3 unannounced ones that we haven't, shown off as of yet.
Right. This game is not out yet.
No, so it's coming out hopefully Q1, Q2 next year. But we're kind of looking at the moment. So it's got local multiplayer. We're definitely adding online multiplayer and kind of making sure that all works on all consoles as well.
And in terms of online multiplayer, how are you handling things like latency and lag?
At the moment, we're still kind of planning that out. So I can't say too much on it myself, especially as I'm not a network programmer. At the moment, we're kind of just planning out what online multiplayer is going to look like. So we're kind of looking at doing a tournament-based sort of thing, and hopefully, the community kind of responds to that really well.
It's given the kinetic, very fast action that I've been seeing from this game, it's definitely something that's a bit of a concern, because this is a game where low latency is just absolutely going to destroy it.
Yeah.
So hopefully that all works out for Kung Fu Kickball here. Anyway, so shifting yet again, we got Element Space, which is quite an interesting title. It is a turn-based strategy game, but that's not what most interests me. It's the aesthetics, and it's basically the Incan Empire in space, from what I saw and from what I've read.
Yeah, so Element Space is really unique, actually. As you've kind of outlined, it is turn-based action, and very similar in thinking of to how your XCOM plays and whatnot.
Right.
The developers themselves are Argentinian, and they kind of certainly looked at other cultures and kind of architecture and how it's kind of represented. There's levels that kind of take influence from, as you kind of said, Incan, also Italian sort of architecture, which is really beautiful to see, especially it's kind of an outer space setting as well. So it's really, I quite enjoy it. It reminds me a lot of the older, especially the prequels to Star Wars, where they were off in Italy when they were, protecting Padme. It's certainly good to see that architecture kind of appear.
Well, it's like anything that isn't, Space Marines, definitely catches my eye.
Yeah.
Against Space Marines, but after Gears of War and Halo and all of that, even like XCOM, I've seen this.
Yeah.
Something like this is definitely more flavorful, and
I think definitely makes it a bit more visually appealing.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of how big your squad is this a 3-person, 4-person team?
Yeah, so it's a 3-person team, but from that you can actually you can recruit other team members and kind of swap in people kind of as you see fit. And each person has their own set of abilities and kind of main sort of weapon specialty, and really it's all about finding what works for you the best. Levels will have different requirements as well. It's not all about wiping out all the enemies. It's also deactivate this bomb or kind of escape with these civilians and whatnot.
Right. Sounds like missions I've come across in other tactical strategy action games.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of abilities and powers and stats, is that all like class based or is that character based?
So it's all character based. There are a range of other weapons that you can kind of acquire, and depending on your character, if they're specializing in that sort of weapon, you can equip that. But yeah, it's definitely all character based.
Yeah. And in terms of characters, are they all pre-made, or like do you get to create your own character, or at least main character?
So they're all pre-made, and basically recruiting them depends on kind of your political alliance as well. So depending on how you kind of some of the interactions and choices you make in the game, other factions and parties will see you differently, and then from there your own team can kind of see you differently or view you as like the hero they want, or kind of someone that they're just signing up with because it benefits them for the time.
That makes sense. It's like some opt to have the character, some opt to you can create your own protagonist. Whatever works.
Yeah.
Let's see. In terms of actual like tactical mechanics, I'm assuming this uses like action points and different actions require different amounts of points, and the more powerful the action, the more points it takes, all that kind of thing.
Yes. So you'll have, similar to most of the other tactical games, you'll have like action points and movement points, and just kind of swapping between those each round as well per character.
Yeah, perfectly adequate system. And also, from what I see, this game is tile based. Is this 2-dimensional or is this 3-dimensional? As in, does height, does terrain, that kind of thing have an effect on the battles?
Yeah, so it is 3-dimensional, so terrain will affect it, and it's honestly something I struggle with because I'm not great at these games. But yeah, so you've got fully destructible environments as well, but so all cover can kind of take damage, and you can scare someone away from where they were once safe, then they'll have to run away and either hide again or take you head on. But if you capture the high ground, it's definitely going to be a lot easier.
That's good to hear. Like, I personally like it when terrain is part of the equation.
Yeah, it definitely makes it a bit more a thinking man's game at that point.
Indeed. And let me see, is this a one-player experience, or can you do multiplayer, both in terms of like co-op or PvP, or?
So it is one player only. It is also currently out on Steam at the moment. So we're only doing the console versions. So if anyone's interested, by all means check it out on Steam as it is.
Okay.
And we'll definitely have more updates on it in the coming year.
Fair enough. Let's see. Now, another game I'm really talking about is Projection First Light. Not just because of the game itself, which looks pretty impressive, but to my knowledge, this is the first Apple Arcade project we've talked on the program.
Cool.
Yeah. As this is, I'm interested in getting some insight in in how the Apple Arcade works.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, just a brief background on the game. Like, Projection First Light's kind of been in development from 3 different game studios within Sydney, and it's kind of based on shadow puppetry and light manipulation, and it's a puzzle platformer sort of thing. You kind of explore different cultures that use shadow puppetry as a storytelling medium. So you'll visit places like Indonesia, China, Turkey, and England, and ultimately you're telling a story just without words. So it had been in development for a while, and we're really trying to put time and effort in to make it a real quality project. And then Apple, they put feelers out, and I guess we kind of submitted, and they sort of liked what they saw. So we kind of partnered up with them.
Indeed. And has it been a smooth process on the Apple Arcade? Like, like I said, this is new territory for us, so
Yeah.
I have no idea how visibility works, how Apple promotes this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very smooth for us. Apple have a fantastic platform, and from our perspective, seeing some of the other games that are kind of on there, it's great to kind of get that recognition from them as like this is a good title and it works really well with all their other kind of games on there. But yeah, as you, I'm sure you would have seen, especially as they were leading up to kind of launching the project, they kind of really promoted everyone both on social media and kind of in their announcements showcasing the games that were on it, and that's also great to see, people get eyeballs on the game and really kind of track it. And from there, I mean, we were originally developing it for consoles and Steam, and it directed people back to the Steam page, and they can kind of see, oh look, this has been around for a while, and here's some cool footage that already is out there that I can see.
And is the game still coming to other platforms, or is it an Apple Arcade exclusive?
So it is coming to other platforms in 2020. I guess kind of as we get closer to that, we'll definitely have more to say. But for the time being, it is an Apple Arcade exclusive, yeah.
Interesting. I'm glad to hear that apparently the Apple Arcade is working for you, because honestly, I think mobile needed something like this. I know there's a lot of concern about subscription services, but at least in the mobile space, premium apps needed something to breathe.
Yeah, and I think it's good seeing as well. We've been lucky enough to partner up with Apple, and they've been great having us. Even I think Google was also putting out a similar sort of thing. Their Play Pass, or I think, I'm pretty sure it's called Play Pass, but really making sure there's more curated list. And I mean, I know all other platforms kind of doing it with Xbox Game Pass as well, and PlayStation have their own sort of thing. But really having those core games that they're wanting to push, I think it benefits everyone.
Yeah. I suppose diverging a bit from the games themselves, have you signed up to, like Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, or, any of the other subscription services out there currently?
I mean, personally,
I mean, as a company, like, is Blowfish looking to put their games on Game Pass?
Look, we're always open to conversations with platform holders, and it's something that we always kind of you want to have those lines of communication, especially. There's nothing I can kind of say that we are signed up for or anything, but if the right opportunity presents itself, we're definitely open to it.
I suppose along those lines, have you looked into having any of your titles published on the EGS?
Sorry, I'm not quite as familiar. What was the EGS?
The Epic Games
Epic Store, of course. Sorry. Yeah. Look, we are primarily Unity devs as well, and I think as we kind of get more Unreal projects kind of off the ground, it's certainly something we'd definitely want to have that conversation with them. Mm-hmm. Really, it's up to them at the end of the day. We definitely want as many people to play our games as possible. So we also factor that in when we kind of look at these platforms and essentially what they're offering.
Makes sense. So I guess that's a no, but you're open to the idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, moving ahead, let's see. We got Wispy and the Lost Atlas. This is an interesting one. I guess there's no other way to put it. This game kind of reminds me a lot of, say, Kirby's Epic Yarn.
Yeah, so Whipsy and the Lost Atlas is kind of like a little retro pixel platformer. It was made by this guy, indie dev by the name of Daniel Ramirez, and kind of he was inspired by those retro games of old and really wanted to kind of make, a game that he remembers was, difficult but still fun as a kid to really kind of play. And while in some respects it's certainly simple in kind of its mechanics, anyone can kind of pick it up and play. It does take a degree of patience and time to really kind of get through the level and 100% it, which I certainly like doing when I play games.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it certainly looks like a if typical, but fairly fun action retro platformer.
Yeah, it certainly does get difficult in the boss fights, which again, I'm far more of a casual player myself, so it's always a challenge.
It's just we tend to play a lot of these, so it's definitely something that is recognizable to us.
Yeah,
there are a lot of developers who like to do the retro styled platformers. And in terms of abilities, I see that the whip, the string, whatever that object is called in game, is not just a whip or something you use to grab. It's also used as like a helicopter.
Yeah, so essentially it kind of goes with the name Whipsy. His main ability is he's got like a magical whip. He can kind of like use it to attack, to navigate himself over little chasms just by, hook shotting onto something. And then, if he is falling from a height, holding down like the A button will kind of like allow him to fall safely and kind of hover and almost like a little helicopter.
And so my next question in terms of abilities is, does Whipsy have all of his abilities at the onset, or like if you complete a stage you get the helicopter ability?
Yeah, so from the onset he'll have all his abilities, and honestly the thing we kind of find is, I mean, I don't want to call it the Dark Souls of platformers, but I mean health potions are sparse essentially, so it really creates a great challenge. So we wanted the players to kind of be ready to go from the get-go, have as much as they can to kind of help them get through, and in most cases it's still going to be a struggle.
Indeed. And what is the framing device of Whipsy? Who is Whipsy? What is he, and what is he looking to achieve or accomplish?
Yeah, so Whipsy is actually a little boy named Alex who's been transformed by an evil wizard. So basically, he's turned into Whipsy, the pink whip-wielding monster, almost, adorable monster. And his goal is to kind of return to his human form and make it back to his family. And throughout kind of each level, you're taking down one of the wizard's henchmen, sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, so that's currently out now as well, and we're looking at the moment of implementing some more localization and additional content coming soon.
I see. And how long of a game is this?
Yeah, so it's definitely a shorter experience, probably about 2 hours. I've taken far longer. Again, I can't stress that enough. At least 3 to 4 hours. It's kind of perfect. Just pick up and play for a little bit, and then when you need a break, just kind of sit down and go do something else. And I played a lot on my commute and kind of just burnt through it that way, and didn't realize how much time I'd actually spent on
it. Is there a speedrunning mode?
Not at the moment, no. I mean, you're definitely welcome to speedrun it, but we haven't put any kind of allowances in for speedrunners,
no. Any other alternate modes that the player should be aware of?
At the moment, no. As I kind of said, we are looking at adding more content to it.
Right.
So I guess we'll kind of have more to say on that in the future.
Okay. And any sort of like collectibles or bonuses that you can collect in the stages?
Yeah, but it's using simple sort of Mario collectibles that you get 100 kind of coins or whatnot, and you get a new life. And especially on some of those some of those bigger chasms where you're whipping across multiple times. It takes a lot of skill and practice, so you definitely need those lives.
Not surprised. And let's see. And I guess our final game that we'll profile here, since we are getting a bit low on time, is Inflection, which is a survival horror type of game.
Yeah.
And I suppose my first question here is, what kind of survival horror is this? That is to say, is it something like Resident Evil, or is it more like, say, Outcast, Outlast, or Amnesia?
Yeah, so it definitely gets compared more to Outlast and Amnesia more than Resident Evil. So it's not, you're not so much as equipping like weapons or stuff to fight off hordes of enemies or anything like that. Basically, essentially, it's our main developer on it who currently works for us. He was a solo dev and published this himself to Steam, and we're just working on the console versions. He mentions it's kind of like a waking nightmare. You kind of wake up in a house and you kind of got to uncover the mysteries of kind of what's happened to this happy home, and all the while kind of avoid vengeful AI that's kind of stalking you and trying to kill you.
And when he says waking nightmare, what does that mean? Like, is the player character seeing hallucinations? Is the world itself changed?
Yeah, so definitely both of those. So the character will, they'll go from suddenly, reading a note to turning around and suddenly like the door's now missing at the room and they've got to uncover kind of like the puzzle on how to get out. And in some cases, just they'll start seeing different demons and kind of other spooky stuff that you wouldn't necessarily expect to find even in this kind of like hellish environment already.
Mm-hmm. And is there a lot of collecting of notes?
So the main story is kind of told through flashbacks and just general kind of like what you can kind of gather from the environment. So the main mechanic essentially is kind of, you've got a torch, you can hide, and picking up notes and objects and kind of uncovering, how is this going to help me defeat the AI spirit kind of chasing you. So everything's kind of interactable. Whether or not it's useful is a different story.
I see. And let me see. I see light and dark are prominent motifs in this game. Like, is that just restricted to the flashlight, or is that a larger thing in the in the world? Let's say.
So it's definitely a large thing in the world. Quentin, the game designer on it, he's done a brilliant job on the overall lighting of the game. You'll go from being, in a really well-lit environment to all of a sudden just from picking stuff up, it's just all changed, as well as almost mirror worlds you can kind of enter. There's one piece in particular that, you kind of uncover the real world and, the mirror world, and where everything's kind of wrong and, turned upside down. And it's really good at scaring the pants off you.
It does sound interesting. And any word when the console versions will be out?
Yeah, so we're looking at Q1 release for the console versions, and we do have some console exclusive content coming for that as well.
Is that something you can specify, or?
At the moment, no. But we're definitely looking at different game modes and kind of how you can have a bit more fun in the environment and essentially getting players to keep coming back.
I see. And well, I'll turn it over to my colleagues here to see if they have any questions about any of the games we've profiled.
I think I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah, it was quite a whirlwind tour, but I think it's good that you have a whole bunch of stuff that you have worked on and are working on.
I mean, so it goes. And indeed, there were a couple games we couldn't get to this time. maybe we'll have you back on the program to talk about, say, Obey Me and Ember Knight or Ember Light.
Winter Ember.
Yeah, Winter Ember. Sorry, I'm thinking of something else. Winter Ember. When they're a bit further along.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks for having me, and I'm more than happy to keep talking to you guys whenever.
Okay, good to hear. So yeah, that's a bevy of games from Blowfish, available for many platforms, usually in either consoles or PC. Admittedly, it's going to differ depending on the game we've profiled, and we really don't have enough time to do the complete rundown. So, if you want more information on that, just go to their website and look under their games section. And on that note, Petty, play us to the next segment. All right. So, welcome to the first topic of discussion of the season. And what we're talking about this week is the, let's say the EA Steam Alliance. Definitely one of the bigger news stories. Maybe not the biggest, but I really don't feel like talking about Pokemon because the whole thing is fucking stupid, and the people behind it are just getting increasingly toxic. But once again, that's
also the story on that one has not been written yet, because at the very minimum we need to wait for the day one update to see how much stuff that fixes, if anything. But yeah,
like I said, it's a whole thing, but another time. What we're talking about here is over the break, EA, after a good 8 years or 6 years, it depends on how you want to measure things. They're back on Steam, like seemingly out of the blue. EA and Steam came to an agreement apparently, and Star Wars Jedi Order is coming tomorrow, if I'm recalling, or is it today? Like, it's releasing real soon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the first EA. It's the first EA new EA project since 2011, and it's the first bit of EA content since 2013. Some background on this: back in 2011, EA and Valve had a big spat over the way DLC was handled. I don't remember all the details because, once again, this was 8 years ago. It led to stuff like Crysis 2 getting pulled. Mass Effect 2's DLC was affected. I think not all of the DLC is available for the Steam version to this day. I could be wrong about that. Once again, things are hazy. And Dragon Age 2 was pulled from the service. And unlike Crysis 2, which eventually got a Steam version, Dragon Age 2 has never returned to the platform. Mm-hmm. And the fallout from that is we got the creation of EA's Origin service. They built their own little pillow fort, and they've been occupying that space ever since. And as far as it's the last bits of EA stuff was The Sims 3. They were still supporting the Steam version of Sims 3 up until the point they were done with The Sims 3. Mm-hmm. After that, there was no EA until Jedi Order here.
And Jedi Order is coming out the 15th.
There we go. So it is tomorrow.
Friday.
Friday, yeah. There we go. Yeah, a bit off on the calendar. Anyway, the point is, this is actually quite the momentous occasion. And it's not just having Jedi Order on Steam. This is going to bring multiple EA games to the platform. Jedi Order is just the first. They're bringing Apex Legends. They're bringing FIFA 20. They're bringing Battlefield 5. They're bringing all the heavy hitters. Granted, they're a bit late since, they're already out on Origin. But the point is, EA is back in the Steam ecosystem, and there's been a lot of speculation as to why that is. EA says that they've been concerned about the continued fragmentation of the platform, the PC platform specifically, and they have decided, they've at least public facing, they've taken a bit of the the Microsoft route. They said, for whatever reason, they want to be on Steam because, people actually use Steam. It's still the biggest space in this space. Obviously, this hasn't stopped people from speculating that, an actual contract has been signed, EGS style, but that remains speculation. But I suppose it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. In that, EA is back on the platform, and that gives Steam a boost that they've probably been needing, at least from a PR standpoint. Because, while the notion of the EGS starving out Steam is quite frankly ludicrous, if you've browsed Steam for just a fucking minute, you know how much fucking product there is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, the EGS, Epic is not going to take that away. Not even Fortnite generates that amount of dosh. And they've already said they've gone the curated route, but the whole strategic snatching of games from their platform has had an effect. I'm like, whether or not this is a reaction to the EGS grabbing Ubisoft, because EA is really becoming the new Ubisoft here. And it's also EA wants to bring its Origin platform to more people. Because the thing about Steam is you can have other services on the platform, like Uplay. All fucking Ubisoft games require Uplay. In terms of EA, as I understand it, I forget if Origin is required for every game, or if that's just hang on, let me look up Jedi Order on Steam because I forget because there was some confusion about the whole Origin pitch. I think that was specifically around the multiplayer games, because the multiplayer games are actually going to not use Origin. They're going to be separate platforms, but they are going to have crossplay. But yeah, there we go. Yeah, the Star Wars Jedi Order, it requires Origin and an EA account. That's not a surprise, because that's the real point of EA being here. They want to get more people into their ecosystem, even if they have to join another ecosystem to do it. Once again, not the first ones to do this, but what they are bringing new to the table is EA Access. Because this is actually the first subscription service that is being brought to Steam. So it's got that going for it. It's just the problem. It's EA Access. EA Access is not very impressive on its own. And mind you, EA Access is different from Origin Access. What's the difference, you might ask? Well, Origin Access has third-party games on it. EA Access does not.
Mhm.
Like, so, that's the limiting factor here, which is quite the limiting factor if you ask me. It's like, here's the thing. EA doesn't produce enough unique fucking content to warrant having their own access, in my estimation. Some people disagree. But yeah, I personally don't see it. But it's there if you want to access it. No pun intended. And yeah, this is still a very, very significant development in the storefront wars that we have to go through, apparently, again. Like, because,
I mean, they come and go.
Yes, they do. I'm like,
whenever someone has too much of a market share, they attract competitors.
That's not
whenever there are too many people, they all die off, or a lot of them do.
Well, we'll see. But that is the state of EA and Steam right now. How much more fruit this bears is kind of up in the air because they've announced a slate of games that is coming to Steam in 2020, but I don't think any of those games have release dates right now. They're probably EA is probably just focused on getting Star Wars out the door right now, before talking about anything else. And it's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It's like, apologies about that, but here's the thing. I don't like EA. I don't like EA's games. I don't really pay attention to what they do. But this was just too big to not comment on because, we've come full circle in a way. EA kind of kicked off the grand Steam rebellion, and now it's ended because the world has changed somewhat. It's not been as big a shift as, say, what's going on in the streaming field, with Netflix and all that, but the EGS has made waves, and I can't say that this alliance isn't a product of that one way or the other. Right, and any thoughts from the crew here?
It's like, the only thing I like from EA now is the Need for Speed games. So if this makes it easier to get them, I'm fine with it. But everything else, I care less about what EA makes.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in most EA games, but I'm pretty much what I said before, that like I'm not surprised that after their people trying to splinter off, that they're trying to at least have it both ways and be involved in like the popular storefront too. So.
Yeah, the only games from EA I ever cared about was The Sims, and from what I heard, Sims 4 isn't all that good. So, yeah.
I mean, the Sims 4 is coming. It's just, the Sims 4 is quite the investment, let's say. Like, you will be spending literally hundreds of dollars if you want to get everything.
Yep.
Yeah, I still feel like The Sims 1 and 2 was probably, the ones that are like worth it. But, that's me.
I haven't played a Sims game since the first one, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, and, I like old stuff, so.
Right. Anyway, so, yeah, that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. For those who've been listening, we thank you for sticking with us, and we hope you enjoy the new season. I've been looking forward to it. And on that note, coming up on the week ahead, Let's see. We do have a Friday show. I was mistaken about that on Sunday, but on Friday, November 15th, hopefully we will be having John Ingold of Inkle on the program. If you remember, we were supposed to have him back at the end of last season. He missed his appointment, and that's how we got the 80 Days Let's Play. So if he's doesn't show up again, we'll be doing part 3 of that. And on the Sunday reviews coming up this Sunday, we will be reviewing Shadows and Dust, Gamester 81, Sydney Hunter, and the Curse of the Mayan, the Nintendo Switch version. And yes, that is the outside of for the Nintendo Switch. That is the full name of this game.
Yeah, when you download it, it doesn't have the. It just starts with the Sydney Hunter, but.
Yeah. Well, PR people are very.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I'm just saying, like, no, you have to say the whole title.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also got Super Ledge Drop Double Laser. I think everyone has that now because it was only $1.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, that is what's coming up for the week ahead. So be sure to join us. Well, really for the post show, we're still doing that. But until next time, I wish you good gaming.